Hello, Hockey World. It's Thursday, November 8th, 2018.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
I'm Kevin Allen from USA Today Sports.
And I am Eklund. You're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And I then wanted to start with the Penguins Day because, the 0-5 Pittsburgh Penguins right now, just in their last 5 games. Last night, they played very well. It was a great game. I'm sure a lot of people watched it because it was definitely the highlighted game of the night. But 5 losses, and I was looking at this team and Rutherford generally is not like I wouldn't say he's not. He's a relatively patient general manager, but he's also very much of like Kevin. I know you've always called him the horse trader of GMs.
Yeah.
Rutherford, he will do. He's not afraid to do something.
Well, I think he will. He's always been very proactive, and I wouldn't call him impatient, but I would say that he's aggressive, and they clearly have some issues, and the injury to Schultz on the back end certainly makes the situation even worse there. And when you have 2 players making a lot of money, that tends to alter your depth a little bit. And they've always been, in my mind, even when they were winning cups, they were always like one winger short for the centers they had. I think that's still an issue. And, they're just not quite the same team as they were before. Like, and the last time they won the cup, their depth was good, and it seemed like to be the right chemistry. And I think they've kind of lost that chemistry a little bit.
Well, I saw them play against the Leafs on last Saturday, and it was a thoroughly dominant performance by Toronto, which was a little surprised that, Toronto's undefeated on the road, but going into Pittsburgh's always been a problem for them, obviously facing Crosby and Malkin. And the thing I took from last night that I was surprised at, being Pittsburgh versus Washington, was that Casey DeSmith started in goal and not Matt Murray. And I'll let Russ talk about that because we were talking about that before the show. But they're not, I believe Brassard is out too, and that takes away from the center depth. They have Matt Cullen playing, who's 41 years old, playing as their 4th line center. Other than Crosby and Malkin and Gensel and 1 or 2 others, they're not getting a lot of production from the depth forwards, and their defense has never been strong. And without Schultz, that just makes it even weaker. And Letang is a shadow of his former self. So this is sort of a multi-system failure. It's not one thing; it's a number of things.
Yeah, we saw Murray sort of not pushing off right a couple of games ago, and he hasn't really been right for weeks. So he's out. You did lose Connor Sheary, so you lost that offense. They're, like I said, the blue line's in horrible shape. I know Letang was there, and Letang and Mata, and then it starts getting really bad. So they're in the doldrums right now. But again, they only lost 2-1, and that's the amazing part of this whole thing is we could bitch and moan about how bad the Penguins are, and they could still take on one of the best teams and just lose 2-1.
Yeah, 2 points. One, as long as they got Crosby and Malkin, there's a chance they're going to pull out of this and be dominant. And both those players are playing well. And I'm going to take a little bit of issue about Letang. He's averaging a point per game, and he's +6. Like, I wouldn't say that he's a
well, to me, it's like I look at Malkin. Okay, Malkin's having an unbelievable year. The thing about the Penguins normally is when that they're doing, let's say, mediocre. They're not. They're still. They had a good start, so they're still in fine shape, right? So, but at the end of the day, you always say, Malkin and Crosby can bring it out of it. Well, Malkin and Crosby are doing what they do, and Malkin especially. Malkin's got 20 points in 15 games or something like 14 games. It's crazy, and yet he's even in the plus minus column, which is interesting to me. Like so you look at Malkin, he's like when you're putting up 20 points in 14 games, you're even in the plus minus column, which the whole Penguins are. The Penguins are. They've scored 47 goals, they've given up 47 goals, so they're an even plus minus column. But that's an issue, and this isn't like a matter of Malkin and Crosby bringing them out of it. They have Malkin and Crosby are doing their thing, and Kessel's doing his thing. He's right in there too. They're all three of them are having great years. I mean, just unbelievable. This really is a matter of defense. I mean, it really is. It really is a matter of the injuries on the defensive end and Matt Murray, and how much they need goaltending. I mean, this is a Penguins team that needs goaltending, and what we always forget about the Penguins, and it's is the impact that Marc-Andre Fleury had on them for all those years. Even when he wasn't the goalie that was winning them Stanley Cups, he was winning the major amounts of games in the regular season.
And Carl Hagelin's got 3 points. Like Carl Hagelin at one point was around a 35-40 point guy last year, 31 points. He has tailed off. I know he hit 30, but it seems like he's older than 30.
So Russ, 1 second, your microphone is really low. See if you can adjust like what your microphone input is or something like that. I don't know where your input's coming from. If it's coming from are you on your laptop or your phone? You're on your phone, right?
The computer.
You're on your laptop?
No, he's on his phone because there was problems with his laptop.
Okay, yeah. So just make sure your micro. I don't know if it's thinking your microphone is your headset or something, but something is picking up something from somewhere else. Just check that out and see.
Well, I mean, to Kevin's point, I mean, I'm not saying Letang is no longer good. It's just, remember, I mean, before the series of injuries, he had to play 30 minutes a night sometimes. He had to really carry the mail. And I think he's still effective. He's still good, but he needs support. And other than a guy like, Mata has not been as good as a lot of people thought. I think Dumoulin is a decent defenseman, but there's not a support structure there to really help Letang out and with Schultz out, and it's going to be a long time. I think they said 4 months. That really is an area of weakness for them. And as we know, getting defense right now on the trade market, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. And I don't know. I don't put anything past Jim Rutherford because in the past he's been able to do that, but it's going to be tough to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they thought that, and I think this was a miscalculation, to be honest, that Jack Johnson would be able to help more than he has. Like, I don't think he's been horrible. He's been fine, probably better than he was in his last season in Columbus. But, he's not the difference maker that he was when he first started his career. I would use the word, serviceable now
right
at this point in his career. And I think at least the fan base was expecting a little bit more from him. And, I don't see, he's not the answer when they're struggling so mightily on defense. Like, he can help, but not be a guy that can sort of change the fortunes.
And what mitigated things yesterday was the fact that Malkin was ejected from the game, so they were without him for the second half of it because he elbowed TJ Oshie, and
he won't face any disciplinary hearing for that, which is kind of.
That's, again, I mean, I know that I've railed against this for years, and why not go down this road again? There continues to, in my mind, to be a double standard when it comes to star players who do things in terms of getting suspensions, like Ovechkin in the past, and and now Malkin. I think that was a suspendable elbow because he saw Oshie coming along and he whacked him right on the jaw with the elbow. It wasn't. I mean, the league said he was preparing for contact, but it didn't really look like that. I mean, I'm preparing for contact like this. That's how I'm preparing for contact. So
I'm preparing for you to hit me with a hammer. Yeah,
I mean, that does fall into their. There is a consistency there. They've used that before. That when you are allowed to raise up your arm if you're expecting to be hit. So,
but Malkin's always been sneaky dirty, and he does get away with a certain amount. He does.
Oh, he does. He does. He's not a clean player at all. He's got every possible side of every possible thing you want in a hockey player. Malkin has a little bit of it, which is what's great about him. I mean, he's and part of that is an edge. He's got an edge too. He can pass, like, he's an incredible passer. He's got an amazing shot. He can skate like the wind. He can drive the net. He can play great defense. He's got an edge too. He's just like, he does have everything. You're right. And I mean,
but what about Milan Lucic though?
A dirty enough hit too, and I didn't think it should have been a suspension. But
I didn't either. I didn't think it was a suspension.
The bigger thing today, the big news today, and this is actually really big news, is Palat in Tampa is going to be out for a month.
Right.
And, he's become quietly one of the best players in the Tampa Bay Lightning. Maybe not so quietly, but I mean, the news that when you talk to people around the league, he's just one of those guys that, he's getting a lot of Patrice Bergeron comparisons, that's like the latest thing I keep hearing with Palat. Is he that good, Kevin? What do you think?
Well, I think he's a good player. I wouldn't go that far, though. Bergeron, I think, has long been one of the best players in the league, and I don't think people recognize him. But Palat is a very valuable player, to be sure. But, he's on a team like – I don't think that's as devastating of an injury as, some of the ones we've, seen around the league. Like it's not like losing Austin Matthews in Toronto or
right. Yeah.
That else.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying, and I'm buying. I'm buying what you're saying, that he's an important player and he doesn't get. But I just think that team is strong enough that losing him for a month, while not ideal, is not devastating for that team.
I'm not as worried, Eck. Adam Ernie has one less point than Palat, and he's only played in 10 games. He's got 4 points.
Yeah.
So he's starting to come on. They're so deep there. Like, I don't think it's going to kill them at all.
Yeah, it would be one thing if they lost. If they lost another defenseman. Hedman is out, or he was out. I'm not sure if he's back yet, but they have enough depth at forward that they can absorb that. And Palat has been sort of that guy who fits in the top six, but he's not a central piece. He plays well with Kucherov. He plays well with Killorn. He plays well with Stamkos whenever Cooper mixes up the lines. But I don't think like individually he's, like you said, a Bergeron type. I think he's just a good top six forward. But if they're going to have an injury, they would prefer it to be at forward rather than on defense or in goal, because they really don't have anybody behind Vasilevsky that can carry the mail. And on defense, Hedman and Stralman, and then Sergachev, and not much else.
Right.
And
right,
McDonough.
Sure.
McDonough's pretty good.
I wanted to get Kevin's view on the Quenneville firing too, because we haven't had Kevin since that happened, and that's a big, and it's interesting. It's one of those firings that not just kind of obviously affect Chicago, but could affect a lot of teams, and how they move forward. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Well, you just said it. The column for me was had he been fired 2 days earlier, he might have been the coach in the Los Angeles Kings.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at the options they had, and if Quenneville would have been there, I think they might have called him and said, let's get this done, because he'd be actually a perfect coach for that veteran LA team in my mind. But you're right. Now every time there's a coach on the hot seat, like in St. Louis, there's already been lots of talk about how Quenneville's there. He's the new hot property.
Oh, and yeah.
As I wrote in my column, I think he'll get back on top before the Blackhawks do.
Yeah, there are certain kinds of owners who, definitely. Is your dog okay, Russ?
Yeah, she's fine. She's just whining.
Everybody who's listening who has a dog is racing around like saying, "Oh man, is my dog?" Yes, it is Russ's dog. It's not yours.
Russ's dog is really sad for Joel Quenneville.
I know, he really.
Yeah.
I think it was the Palat thing that really got him. All right, so, but there are certain kinds of owners. Like I go to Montreal, for example, when Julian becomes available, like Montreal jumps on that right away.
Right.
In the olden days, in Philadelphia, that's Snyder. Quenneville would have already been coaching tonight. That's the way that he worked, right? Like he was just when a super talented, when a top of the line guy became available,
well,
Ed Snyder made sure that the Flyers were involved with that.
It's not unusual to have happened just recently. When Boudreau got fired in Washington, he got hired in Anaheim, and Carlisle got fired in Anaheim, and then I think it was 2 months later, Carlisle took over for Ron Wilson in Toronto, and then like you just said, with Julian getting fired in Boston and him getting hired by the Canadiens right away. Kevin, in my mind, it's whether he wants to step right into it right away, or whether he wants to take a break. He's going to get paid $6 million the rest of this year and next year anyway, so it doesn't really matter one way or the other unless he
and the other issue is whether or not that the Blackhawks would allow him, for example, to go to St. Louis.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? They have control.
Yeah. So I don't know whether that would happen, but that won't stop the rumor mill from throwing his name into every coaching. I mean, I live in Detroit, and there are people on my Facebook who immediately said Quenneville to Detroit. I don't think that's a good fit. Just because.
No, I don't either.
Quenneville to me is best when he's with a veteran team, not with a bunch of young kids that you're trying to bring along slowly and teach them. I'm not saying he can't teach, but I don't think that's what he wants to do.
Right. I think you're right, and I think he's one of those guys who takes you that next rung. To me, and this is kind of strange to say, perhaps, but the team that jumped out and they are young, but they're also really good, is Columbus. Columbus jumped out at me. Like if I was Columbus, I would be looking hard. Now this is not a knock on Tortorella, who's doing a good job and everything like that, but man, oh man, like the amount of talent Columbus has, where they are right now, the importance of this season for the Columbus Blue Jackets, which cannot be underplayed. I mean, this with everything that's happening between Bobrovsky and Panarin, I think that's a great fit. I mean, I'm in the same boat as you, Kevin. My Facebook has been lit up with when's he going to be a Flyer? When's he going to be the Flyers coach?
Right. Yeah, I mean I think actually he would be a great fit for the Flyers.
Yeah. Hey, look, if they lose to Arizona, the same discussion will start to happen again because they won on the road, even Ron Hextall wasn't thrilled even with the way they played on the road.
Did you hear that? And I heard that too, which was really interesting. That was sort of surprising because Hextall has been one of those guys who's always been backing Hextall in every possible situation. And you would think that he was given a out here by the Flyers going 3-0-1 on their road trip,
except the special teams, Zach. I mean, they were scoring first, which is good. They were coming back, which was good, but the penalty kill was still pretty bad, and the power play was still pretty bad. Yeah.
And those are, I agree. That's really that's an issue. And he did not give this resounding, and you're right, Kevin. People forget that the Blackhawks still can control this to a degree. They still have the ability to.
Yeah, to a degree, but they'd like to get out from his contract too.
Sure.
So I don't know. Would they say no to St. Louis? Maybe, but if he was going to Philadelphia, they would not.
They wouldn't have a problem with that.
Let's just say this: Todd McClellan can thank his lucky stars that Edmonton is at least over 500 and having a reasonable amount of success. Because if they were struggling, the opportunity to coach Connor McDavid, I think Quenneville would pay them.
Well, the other thing I would say about the Quenneville firing is, and I mean this, I guess is fairly obvious, but if I'm Stan Bowman, I'm thinking, well, I'm next. I mean, because to me this seemed like a McDonough. Firing, and you pay a price for your success, and it's usually paid by the coach first and then the general manager.
Right.
They won 3 cups in 6 years, and I think everybody in hockey would trade 3 cups to be and then accept the fact they're going to be in the mess that the Blackhawks are in, because that's what created the mess.
Well, yeah, and honestly, it's like I don't envy Jeremy Colleton. And this is a guy who's coached 1 year in the American Hockey League, and he steps in for Joel Quenneville.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's right. But there's nothing. I keep reading and hearing people say, well, Bowman made bad signings. Bowman did what he had to do with a good team. When you have success, you have to pay your players more. You have to reward them. They get old, and you can't sustain it, and it's just the way it goes. But it's the price you pay for all the success they had. I mean, he actually worked miracles, in my opinion.
Yes.
Speaking of Stan Bowman, to keep that team, in the hunt for three cups, and I think giving Kane and Taves $10.5 million was exactly what he needed to do and had to do. But right now, there are 4 core players that are in the long-term contracts. In my opinion, only one of them is playing at a very high level.
Well,
the highest level.
let me just ask you this, because we were talking about this earlier in the week when Quenneville was fired. Of that core, the core group right now, and I consider the core, Taves, Kane, Keith, Seabrook. Maybe you put Sod in there, although he hasn't played like it, but he's making $6 million a year. And Crawford. Is there anybody of that group that is tradable in the sense that some other teams would want?
Kane could be tradable, but you wouldn't want to trade him,
right?
I mean, Patrick Kane is still one of the most competitive players in the league, playing at a very high level. Taves has played better this season. Even Duncan Keith has played better this season. But, they've played better than last year. But still, I mean, the problem is Seabrook and Keith are 33 and 35, I think.
Right.
And they still got a significant number of years left on their contract. I think Kane's still fine, and I think is going to continue to play on a high level. I think Taves has stepped it up. I think he was a little, embarrassed might be too strong, but he knew he was not at his best last season. And I think he came in sort of wanting to prove that he can still play at a high level. And the problem is the Blackhawks are going to have to try to pull off the most difficult task in terms of rebuilding around 4 players simply because you can't move them up. And that's always hard to do. And it's a little bit easier when you can just bottom out and the fans get it. We're starting over and everything else. Now you're going to try. I mean, the Canucks tried that with the Sedins, and that was difficult. And it's a difficult task. It's not like those players are poor players. It's just they're past their best years, with the exception of Kane. So,
and you're right. This does sound like a McDonough sign. I mean, there was a lot of people giving throwing a lot of hate towards Bowman yesterday about this thing.
Yeah, I don't think he deserves it, to be honest. So
And honestly, if you want to check out somebody coming to the defense of Stan Bowman, check out Daniel Carcillo's.
Incredible.
That's a different level, than what we're talking about. That was, he saved my life type thing. But
that was an amazing thing. I saw it, but I didn't know where was it actually available. Where was it?
It was on his Twitter feed.
On his Twitter feed. Okay, yeah. You really have to. I mean, it's incredible, and definitely check out Dan Carcillo's Twitter feed.
I'm bullish on Bowman. I think he's a smart guy. I think he has his dad's sort of vision of the game. He's very low key. He's as people have forgotten, he's a leukemia survivor.
Yeah.
He's worked behind the scenes and to get some players squared up after difficult issues, and I think he knows what he's doing, but some things it's just hard to manage.
I mean, there's not a GM in the game that could overcome their cap problems. I mean, you don't know how everybody's going to age. It's easy to sort of get on them for that. What I did, I responded back to Carcillo the other day because I said, look, this is one of those situations where Quenneville wasn't getting the guys he needed for his system, so he got frustrated, and Bowman can't give it to him because of the cap, and he got frustrated. So it was better to go to a younger coach. I just think it was, you can't control the timing of it. It's just one of those things that happens.
Well, and in fairness, we have seen this kind. I mean, you're basically trying to give the fans an illusion of freshness because really there's nothing fresh here. I mean, usually a coach comes in, he adjusts the defense, he makes you, think a lot more about defense. So they might cut the goals against down a little bit, and there could be some, push, but you can't change the spots, of these animals.
Right. Yeah.
So they are who they are, and that's the way it's going to be. And I still, if I'm a Blackhawks fan, I'd still be thankful for the 3 cups in 6 years. I mean,
I think Leaf fans would trade for it.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Almost you go to any GM in the league and say, we're going to give you 3 cups in 6 years, and then it's going to be followed by a miserable 4 or 5 years that you've got to sort of navigate through. I think,
but it runs out, Kev. It doesn't matter what sport, how loyal the fans are. It does run out after a bit.
But I think all of them would accept that if you got because first of all, that would mean you'd be GM for 11 years. That's a pretty good run.
That's not bad, right there, right? Yeah, that's something.
So But Dean Lombardi was the toast of LA, and then suddenly he wasn't.
You get basically 4 years, like guaranteed. If you win a Stanley Cup, you got another 3 years after that for sure. And if you win 3 Stanley Cups, you get 11 years. Basically, is how it works, kind of.
Yeah, you almost don't. Sometimes you don't even get that. I mean, look at what happened in Boston, and look at Ray Shero. What did Ray Shero get in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that's true.
And the Red Wings made the playoffs for forever, for 25 consecutive years, and won a lot of cups during that period. But as soon as they missed the playoffs, the fans were unhappy with Holland.
Yeah, right. But the only team that seemed, because I mean, this has to be what's going on in Chicago right now. It sort of has to be a cautionary tale to teams like Winnipeg and Toronto, who have a bunch of really good young players who are going to get paid, and that there's a limited window when you have to pay. Like with Toronto, it's going to be Marner, it's going to be Matthews. They already have Tavares, in Winnipeg, it's going to be Connor, it's going to be Line A, it's going to be maybe Trouba unless they trade him. The only team that has seemed to sort of skirt that, Kev, is Tampa, because of the state tax thing, and they can take a little less. You're paying Kucherov 9.5 and Stamkos 8 and Hedman under 8. In almost any other situation with any other team, those guys would be making considerably more.
Yeah, and you're paying them in sunshine too. I think guys like to go down there. There's a feeling you're playing for a great team. You have some anonymity. You can golf in the winter. I think there are a lot of reasons to go down there. I think Yzerman being there was a lure as well.
Mm-hmm. What's really funny, and this is we don't like to talk politics on the show, of course, but I was talking to a player the other day about the fact that the Democratic governor, the race that was going on in Florida, which was won by the Republican, as every vote is.
Actually, it's not over yet.
Not over yet. Okay, officially, all right.
Yeah, the word recount in Florida are synonymous.
Yeah, I mean, you could have 50 million people, and it would still come down to like 45 votes or whatever in Florida, right? It's just amazing how Florida is this incredible balancing act. But anyway, the player is saying that the Democrat who was running for governor in Florida was running on this idea that was really going to affect the taxes for the hockey players.
Yes,
it was one of these things that was going to majorly affect, because the tax situation is so kind right now down there, and that was a big thing. That
so the Tampa Bay Lightning were all DeSantis fans.
I imagine they were,
I mean, as a general rule, hockey players are Republican. Now, I'm sure they're Democrats, but
which people don't think about, because as a general rule, hockey fans are not. So, but
right.
But as a general rule, NBA players are Democrats.
Right. No, that's for sure. And of course, when I say the general, I don't want to say. I mean, I know that there are fans.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a mix.
And Nashville has a ton of great Republican hockey fans. I wouldn't throw it out there, but I don't want to go into further politics. Just to say that was something. We always get in so much trouble. I'm so nervous when I go into this. I feel like I've walked into a room of like snakes whenever I mention this.
But you're already stammering.
But I know I get terrified because this is like.
You want me to let you know how many followers I lost for one tweet on election night?
Oh, I know.
Well, I don't. That's the thing that's so bothersome. Like it used to be. Like, why should it matter to anyone whether you're a Democrat or Republican or me or a player? Like I don't. It doesn't matter to me whether a guy's a Republican or a Democrat. I mean, that's just his political thing. I just don't understand that.
I have friends from the other side of the political spectrum, and like we just we debate, we argue, but in the end we agree to disagree, and we respect each other's right to have a differing opinion. But in the world of social media, it's like you like this guy, screw you, unfollow. That's basically what it is.
Right. Well, that's what happens.
That's the way it is now. I have a friend who basically doesn't like Tom Brady, because of his political
right.
No other reason other than that.
Right. No, it's so crazy. I mean, to me, it feels like I have friends who are Democrats, I have friends who are Republicans, And then I have friends who are Trump people, which is like seems like another thing altogether, right? So that's it feels like there's a third party, which
is something different.
Yeah, that's called aliens. That's what it's called.
Democrats, Republicans, and Trumps. That's what it feels like right now. So whether whatever. But I have friends that are all three of it. Let's move on, please.
Yes.
The Winter Classic, and I saw this on Russ's Instagram feed, which is always full of animals and other fun things. But this was so I saw this, which I loved. Okay, these are the
Me too.
This is the Boston Bruins Winter Classic jerseys, and hats off to the Bruins for doing it right.
Looks like a bumblebee. I like it.
It's awesome. I mean, this is like
I like it too.
Yeah,
the bee is incredible. It's so good.
It's just this town has a certain ability to like the ability to really do this kind of style the right way. I mean, there's something about like the Red Sox, love them or hate them, it's such a classic logo. I mean, the logo of the Red Sox is you can't not like the logo of the Red Sox, right? And the Bruins jerseys are amazing. The Patriots, we'll do, but they're really not in Boston. They're like far away.
I'll say this: the only jersey of all of them that I didn't like was the bear. Was the Bruins bear? The bear.
My son loved that because my son's an animal guy. But but then the Celtics, unbelievable uniforms, right? Like let's just say like this city has like they do. So when it comes out to designing Winter Classic jersey for them, there's like a lot of pressure on them. But even Harvard,
the Boston Braves logo wasn't the best, if you want to go back that far.
All right, but even Harvard
much so that they moved to Milwaukee.
Even Harvard has awesome uniforms. I mean, and
I agree with that. Yeah.
Harvard's a good.
Boston College has great uniforms. Like it's amazing. They just have a way of doing things up there. That is, and this is, and it's so simple because they do what they do by just being kind of basic. Like this is a very basic design, but it just works. Like other Winter Classic jerseys have gone too far, in different ways to try to be unique or different things like that. And this just works.
They do bees right. They know
bees right.
But a lot of other teams, like by me, is Rowan University, and they have like a club hockey team. And I already saw them tweeting, "Hey, that would look great. That same design, but with an R." So I guarantee you, other teams are going to copy this.
Sure.
Yeah, but all it is just a bee. It's just
doesn't matter. It's just how it looks.
I love that too. I think it's great, but it's just amazing to me that how. And and some people would say it's too simple or whatever, but
sometimes being simplistic is the best.
Absolutely.
And I really liked, and of course I bring everything back to Toronto last year when they did their 100th anniversary game, and they wore the Toronto Arenas jersey. It was just a T with the word Arenas, and it sold like hotcakes, and it looked great. So sometimes it's just simplicity. That's all you need.
That is all you need. Now, along those lines, I saw this on Reddit, and I love this. It's just a little bit of fun because we have not a ton to talk about here, but this is actually good enough. Check this out.
We can always talk about Nylander, which we will.
Oh, come on, man.
No, we day off from him.
Right. Sorry. Okay, so somebody did this on Reddit, and I love this. This is okay. What if the NFL were hockey jerseys? All right, so.
Well, we already saw this because at the World Junior, the Team USA wore the Buffalo Bills jersey. Basically,
I hate.
No wonder they lost.
But go through some of these. I mean, some of these are. I like the Lions one down here. I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, I think some of these are.
I pretty much liked them all when I saw
them. The Packers one is awful.
Tell me the Saints one isn't cool. I mean,
look at the Saints. The Saints looks like an astronaut.
It looks like an LA Kings jersey. That's what it looks like.
I think the Saints one is really cool. The San Francisco one's pretty good.
Somebody had a lot of time on their hands.
I mean, the Rams one is good. There's a few good ones, but
and the Colts one, that is cool.
Yeah, the Colts one is okay.
That's really cool. You have to admit that. And I actually think the Chargers one is really cool too.
Well,
the Chiefs is funny because the Chiefs is like that looks just like
it's the Charlestown Chiefs.
Yeah, it does.
It is just like
just pan up to the Bills one. If it would be appropriate if it had the number 1 on the shoulder because that's where they'll pick in the draft next year.
Yeah, there's the Bills. I think the Jets one is cool. 17. I mean, the Miami Dolphins have like the coolest colors in all of sports. I don't know if you guys saw a couple weeks ago, like the Dolphins were wearing their white jerseys and they were playing against the Texans.
Yeah,
could not have gotten a more black and white contrast. Like the Texans and their just black pants, black shirts, black helmets, black numbers against the Dolphins and their white everything.
Well, let me ask something, because this is again a pet peeve of mine. I mean, I didn't like when teams switched over to the dark colored at home, and white on the road. Because I mean, one of the things, Kev, when I was a kid, and the Sabres wore their white uniform at home, and you'd have the Red Wings or the Flames or whoever, they'd come in with the different colors, and it was, as a kid, you liked seeing the different color jerseys. And now all the road teams come in wearing white, and the Sabres are always wearing blue, or the Leafs are always wearing their dark jerseys. I mean, has there been any talk of them switching it around, or at least because
I agree. Like, I think it should be every other year. Like,
yes, that's a good idea.
Yeah, like I don't understand why they've just completely gone the other way, and because it was cool when they switched.
Yeah.
Because often, cool. Back then you didn't get the home games on TV, so you only saw, what was the, you never saw your home jersey unless you went to games. So
well, I'll tell you what's gone the other way too. And yes, like when you grew up with football, if you're my age, you did like what's now the road jersey because they did wear them at home. I was at the opening day for the Jets this year. You can't get a Jets white jersey at the field. Doesn't exist.
I talked to somebody about this in the NHL, and they said the reason that they've done this, that they've stayed like this, is because it's overwhelming that people buy the darker jerseys.
Baloney. Right? It's baloney. It's only because it's there. There were people that day looking for the white jerseys and walking away because they couldn't get them.
Yeah, but he's right. That is, you ask the national sales, they always go for the color.
Because the dark color, the dark jersey is easier to keep clean. Honestly, I think that's.
I've been talking to. I've been hunting really hard because you obviously see behind me. I have a big jersey collection. I get a new one for Christmas ever since I was born, so I've got over 50 of them. And actually, that's under 50. But I've had 50 Christmases. I've had 49 Christmases. But anyway, but no, the concept of this is so I've been out looking for from the World Cup of Hockey, which I really liked the Team Europe white jerseys. All right, like for what it's worth, I mean they were, and you couldn't get them there because they, and all the jerseys were crazy expensive. But now, if you want to find something cheap, just go on Amazon. If you want a World Cup of Hockey jerseys, they're all cheap with the exception of one that's incredible.
North America.
Yeah, North American one is still like crazy hot and popular. But you can get any of the other ones you can get for like $20, $30, $28 or something like that, which is
I know
$150 at the event where I was. But
I know that I've seen a lot of fans in Toronto wearing the North America Matthews jersey. So
they were sold out when I was there. You couldn't get them during the World Cup itself. They sold out instantly, of course. But the Team Europe white ones were really good looking, especially when you were there. I'm a fan of white jerseys. I think that but they definitely have this. The NHL really they wear and they sell way more. I mean, you can't even go. I'm trying to think if you go into like the Flyers store at the Wells Fargo Center, Russ, if you can even buy a white jersey.
Russ had to drop off.
Because I think when I go through that, I only really see, the orange jerseys. That's all I really see. But let's move on to another non-jersey topic because Kevin and I both have an affinity for the Nashville Predators and always been really supportive of them. And let's just talk about how good they are for a second, because last night is the perfect example of how good the Predators are. Before the game, I heard them interviewing Roman Josi, and they asked Josi what's different. And Josi said, well, it's nothing really different, but what really amazes me about our team is our depth. Roman Josi said, that's the thing, our depth. We just have so much depth. And last night, Colton Sissons, we all remember in that great run had a great hat trick during the Stanley Cup run that the Predators went to the finals. Puts together a hat trick last night. Colton Sissons, who remember is making $625,000 a year, which is an
worth
incredible.
Every nickel.
What was that?
And worth every nickel.
Worth every nickel. I mean, he makes $25,000 less than Zach Ronaldo on the Predators.
Yeah.
He makes $16,000 less than Frederick Gaudreau. I mean, it's just he's $100,000 less than Salomaki. I mean, it's insane. He's the lead. He's the lowest paid Predator. Last night puts together a hat trick in Colorado, where the Avalanche have been playing incredible. They've been an incredible team. If you could stay up for it last night, it was a late game because it started even later because the other game. But if you could stay up for it, you just got a sense of, wow, the Predators are just starting to they're starting to lap the pack a little bit at times. I mean, in that game, that was an impressive one.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this team and they're off to a 12-3 start, but even more impressive is the fact they're 7-0 on the road.
I know.
And they're plus 20 goal differential. Their goals against is, just a hair above 2.0. I mean, they've won 4 in a row, and they seem to have it all. And really, what's interesting to me about that team and why I think they're such a tough team to beat is they're not reliant on any one player. Like Forsberg is an exceptional goal scorer, but he's not in the same ilk as a Matthews or a Crosby, or he's not at that level. Their defense, in my estimation, is still the best in the league, but they're not unstoppable. That defense is, but boy, and they've got the quality goaltending. They just got it all going on.
And Rene really looks like he has like a fountain of youth going on right now, because he looks better than he's looked in like 3 or 4 years. Like, this is the best I've seen. Like, when you watch Pekka Rinne play right now, when Pekka Rinne's at his best, he is 5 feet above the crease. There's no one that challenges more than Pekka Rinne. He is the most challenging goalie in the league. He loves to play aggressive. But when he's struggling, he gets too aggressive. He'll overcompensate one way or the other when he's sliding. But right now, he's just I mean, you could tell that he took last year's loss to Winnipeg very personally, of course.
I mean, I think one of the benefits and one of the things I think is so great about Nashville is how balanced they are. It's like, Rene goes out for, I think it was like a week to 10 days, and Saros, who, we've talked about a lot on this show, stepped up and played really well. And now Rene has signed an extension, and now you've got, for the next 2 years, you've got Saros at, I think, $1.5 million and Rene at $5 million, very manageable numbers. And getting Rene under a little bit less of a contract will help David Poile maybe be able to afford to get Roman Josi re-signed. But they're locked. Their top 4 are locked in. Their 2 goaltenders are locked in, and a guy that we criticized last year for not playing very well, Kyle Turris, has got 12 points. It's balanced.
Yeah, I was really upset with that trade because I've never been a Kyle Turris fan myself, but I think that right now you can't argue with him. And they can. I mean, last night they go in. Sisson gets a hat trick. It's just crazy.
Let me raise one point out of that, which I think is fun. Not fun, probably for David Poile, but is it going to be Pekka Rinne or Saros who's going to be Seattle's #1 goalie for season? Because boy, it sure seems like it's going to come down to that. Is Rinne going to be the Fleury of Seattle? Yeah. Because they have so many talented players, they're going to have some contract issues as well.
Yeah.
And then second thing I wanted to bring up is, and I've been around long enough to know this is even silly to say, even when it comes out of my mouth. But like, if you're looking now, are the 2 teams that are dominant in the 2 conferences the teams that are going to be in the final? Like, Tampa Bay Lightning are playing as well as we expected them to play as well. And what's fascinating to me about the Lightning this year is that Stamkos is 4th on that team in scoring.
Right.
Braden Point is ahead of him, and Kucherov, which you would expect, and Yanni Gordy is on ahead of him as well. So this is a team, and JT Miller has only got a point less than Stamkos, who has 13 points in 15 games. It's not like he's being a lightweight. It's just they have so much depth, and Tyler Johnson, and their defense is strong as well, and they have Vasilevsky. Like, this is a strong team. Like, who knows what's going to happen? But,
and and a couple nights ago, the Predators went into Tampa and beat them 4-1. But I mean, you're right. I mean, Tampa's looking so strong. Nashville's looking so strong. I think the first point is really interesting because, I mean, I don't, could Saros become the Matt Murray, and does Pecorine become Marc-Andre Fleury of that situation? And it seems hard to imagine because I think this signing especially was this kind of signing that, that Poyle and Pecorine got together on and said, I want to be here. I want to help this team out. I want to win this thing. It really felt like to me like a friendly neighborhood signing, like that this happened. And it would be hard to imagine them exposing him, right? Because after that.
Well, but Fleury was Mr. Penguin too.
Oh yeah, no, he definitely was.
Yeah. I mean, but I guess you'd guess it was Saros. But how old is Rennie?
36.
Yeah, he's old. I mean, he's older than Fleury was even, right? I mean,
yeah, for sure.
But Matt Murray was winning cups. Like Saros hasn't won Stanley Cups, so there's a big difference there, right? So I think that Saros I think he's a great young goalie, but I can't imagine. But Saros, could very easily be that guy.
Well, and to your point about it's a year or so away. I mean, they'll probably protect the younger Saros, who's 23, and yeah, exactly. So I mean, but that'll be something that, because the rules are going to be the same for expansion in terms of no move protection and 7-3-1 or 8 skaters and 1 goalie. So I mean, when we get closer to that, it's going to be interesting to go through every team and see who's going to be protected.
So would Rene be? So Rene's contract will be up, right? Is that true or no?
Rene, he signed a 2-year extension. He would have been a UFA after this year, so he's through 2021. So
he'll have still 1 year left after when we get to this, right? Because
it depends on when Seattle's coming in. If they're coming in 2021, then it's going to be the expansion draft will be June of 2020.
Right. So he could, or if he comes in, if they come in later.
So he would have another year left in his contract. But like Kevin said, if he says I'm going to retire if I'm not playing in Nashville, then they'll probably look someplace else, or maybe Nashville makes one of those deals like teams made with Vegas to overlook him and take somebody else.
Yeah, those deals are going to be hard to come by.
I know.
Well, all those deals are going to. I think Seattle's going to want to make them. I just don't think GMs are going to make them.
Yeah, GMs are going to be very gun shy of those deals. Even though I still think they're a good idea. I still think you can't put. You can easily overreact to what happened in Vegas, right? Still think those deals are a good idea. I mean,
I don't know. I don't think the GMs feel that way. I think they felt like they overpaid. I've heard from multiple GMs saying this time, if I lose the player, I'm lose the player. I'm not going to lose two good players.
Right. Like Talon did with Marchessault and Riley Smith. Yeah. May as well.
Yeah. Well, and Minnesota gave up
Tuck and Haula. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and there were, and I think the feeling is now with depth so important that you can't really afford to do that. I mean, those are 2 really good players that they got from Minnesota and from Florida.
But just to finish off the point that you made before about about Tampa and Nashville, I mean, I think first of all, we're not even a quarter of the way into the season. I mean, everybody expected Tampa to be at the top in the Eastern Conference. I mean, they got to the final, they got to Game 7 of the conference final. They're an absolutely loaded team, and Nashville is as well. But Minnesota, Winnipeg in the West. San Jose.
There's a lot of good teams, but I guess my only point of it is there are a lot of teams that we thought are pretty good that have struggled.
Yes.
Or just not been quite as good. Winnipeg is a good example. I just think where Nashville was expected to be good, and they are good, and the team is good. Tampa Bay was expected to be good, and they're as advertised. So
the interesting thing to me about Nashville is many things, but the worry is are they peaking too soon? Of course, because that's always going to be an issue, right? So they're peaking right now. I mean, if they would want the playoffs to start tomorrow right now, because they are just playing that well. But the other thing that's really interesting is Laviolette, who in his career has tended to wear out his welcome in places, is not wearing out his welcome in Nashville. Like we had kind of expected. I think we started to worry about that last year a little bit, saying, okay, he's gonna, because he burns out players pretty quickly. But he's also so friggin' intelligent. You get the sense that he has probably figured out how not to do that. That's what it feels like. He's figured out, okay, he's balancing that line. I mean, there are very few, I think, coaches that I've met that are as intelligent as Laviolette. And he has, whatever he's done there, he has gotten a sense of how to push them like he wants to push teams, but yet at the same time not do it too much. And man, Poyle's made some good moves. And the move you also have to think about that is just kind of crazy is the Hartman move that was made at the trade deadline, which was just it was sort of like a kind of a surprising, like, wow, they got Hartman.
Well, that move was made basically as a preemptive move for Chicago because they probably knew they couldn't afford to re-sign Hartman for what he likely will get as after his contract is up.
Right.
Just like they did with Panarin, they were looking a year or two down the road to say, okay, we know Panarin's going to walk. We know Hartman's going to expect to make $3.5-4 million, and we can't pay him. So we may as well get draft picks for him. But
have they done that too early on Hartman and Panarin? Like, that's one of the things I wonder. Like, like at the same time, get a couple years out of these guys that you could have gotten out of them. I mean, they're like, Hartman is a heck of a player, like way better than you would expect to get for what they got for him.
I think with Blackhawks and Panarin, I think they suspected that this was going to play out exactly how it has in Columbus, and they didn't want to deal with that.
Right.
Because it really is disruptive. Especially with your fan base and so forth. I said this in a recent column that I did. If I was Columbus, I'd trade Bobrovsky right now and keep Panarin until the very end.
Right.
Right, because you have a plan B in Korpisalo, who think.
Yeah, and I think they believe in him now. I'm not so sure that. I mean, he's certainly not Bobrovsky, but I think they think he can win, and where I don't think they have to have Panarin. Like if they want to make the playoffs. Yeah,
they can't get around not having him. I agree with you on that one.
And the other thing, Kev, is that the fact that next year, I mean, Rene signed, but there are goaltenders that will be free agents that they can sign, like Varlamov, or there are goaltenders like Corey Schneider that might be on the trade market. So they might be able, if they're not 100% convinced that Korpisalo is the guy, they do have options that they could go out and sign that would be cheaper than signing Bobrovsky for $9 or $10 million a year.
Well, but here's the thing: like if they don't make the playoffs this year, it might not be Kekalainen making that side.
Yeah, I don't think it will be. I mean, I think they've got.
You really. I mean, I know that organizations will extend people, and then are not. They don't have, that's not necessarily a block to fire. But he just got extended. So did Davidson. So did Tortorella. Yeah. So I would think that would mean that they're safe, even if they miss the playoffs.
Well, you would think so, but
hard to say. I mean, I think it was really dicey last year, I think, with them even. So I don't know. Before we get out of here, I want to show you something that's fun, and I want you guys to pick out what is interesting about this, because the video, and this is a video of Wayne Gretzky's final goal in the NHL. Okay. Mm-hmm. But there's something that someone pointed out to me on, and I saw this. I thought it was really fun to figure out what is unique about this.
I didn't know Howie Mandel was on the ice.
So this is Wayne Gretzky's final goal. It's against the Islanders. Mm-hmm. And so what is interesting about this goal?
Zdeno Chara playing for the Islanders.
Zdeno Chara on the ice right there.
Yeah.
For Wayne Gretzky's final goal. Isn't that funny?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, there he is right there,
That was pre Yashin deal.
Yep. And I mean, I remember seeing Chara play for the first time that I saw him, and I was a fan, right? I wasn't covering or anything, but I went to a Flyers preseason game against the Islanders, and I sat down really low because you would always move down and just cheat your way down. And I saw Chara skate on the ice, and I thought this was the biggest freak that I could. To me, this was such a freak show thing, that this guy was so big and so awkward. I never in a million years, if if you could, tell me, I'll give you, if you give me, I'll bet you $10 to $1 million that guy's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday. I never would have been a million years when I watched that first game thought that guy had a chance of being in the Hall of Fame. Like
I agree with that. It's a cliche now to say for the players, well, they get better with age, but you don't really mean it. But in Chara's case, it's true.
It is so true.
He basically started at an older age to even be more conscious about his workouts and everything. Like Tuukka Rask told me that Chara is actually a better skater. Like this was last season when he told me this than he was 3 seasons before. Like he's worked on his skating and it's
when he was with the Islanders. I mean, he wasn't considered a throw-in in that deal, but I remember him playing when he played for the Islanders, and he was big, obviously, but he was not quick, and there were
a novelty act to me. Like he was like.
Right, there were gaps in his game.
The Flyers had Shel Samuelson, right, and who was tall, but not that tall. But at the same time, Shel Samuelson had more skill, like way more skill than Chara had. So just comparatively so.
I can count on one hand. I can count on a couple hands the number. Guys like Gilles Lupien, who were like 6'6", or there are a lot of big, tall defensemen or big, tall forwards that never amounted to anything. But he improved. He consistently improved after the Islanders in Ottawa, and that arguably is probably the best free agent signing in the history of the league when he signed with the Bruins.
Yeah, and that was crazy because you remember it was down to Chara or Redden. Remember that whole thing? It was like, okay, I was gonna keep Redden or Chara. And we talk about the bad deals maybe that they've made recently, but there's not much that compares to that one. That decision. And I totally at the time still would have gone with where they went. I thought the Redden was the right guy to sign and let Chara go because Chara was getting better, but not to the point where I thought he was going to turn out to be what he became.
Well, what's interesting about Redden is think back during the course of your fandom in any sport, like the number of players that were just great on Tuesday and then were in minors on Wednesday. Wade Redden was a highly coveted, smooth defenseman.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, he couldn't play with the Rangers, and he was banished to the minors. Like,
he became a victim of his salary. That's what it was.
But he just couldn't play.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. He became a victim because he lost his ability to play. Like, he was a tremendous defenseman.
He was.
They wanted to. Sure, he was getting paid too much, but they still would have found places for him to play.
For sure. Like he just, I just don't remember too many guys that sort of fell off so quickly.
Yeah.
If I thought about it, there were probably others, but
the only one I can think of is Jonathan Chichu.
That's fair. Yeah. But Redden was more established, and Redden was viewed as a star, as an untouchable. And then
that's a really good blog idea, Kev. Like the guy, especially guys who sign really big deals and fell off fast.
Russ and I were going to do have a theme show, pick out the 5 worst contracts in the league. I think that, based on bang for the buck and salary, that's sort of down that same road.
So So before we go, thanks Kevin so much for joining us. And I wanted to ask Kevin too. One of the things I had an idea, and I wanted to throw this off of you while we're on the air still, and get your opinion on it down the line, or just think about it. I had a concept, an idea for the podcast that we would do at some point, as we move along and we get a slow day, to do a podcast as if it's the day after something major that happened in the NHL, like the day after the Miracle on Ice, to actually pretend we are there. And or the day after the Gretzky.
I love that idea.
Would that be fun? So it could be so we'll have you on when we do this, because you actually live through these things a lot more than we did sometimes. But like the day after the Gretzky trade, and just we can wear your clothes that you wore back then, and let's just act it out and talk like we're actually talking on the podcast.
Well, I was a big in the middle of all that, obviously, when that was happening, trying to follow that, and I'll try to dig up my original story too.
Yeah, I'll give you plenty of warning on when we do it, and we'll figure out how we can all do it. But I think you'd be a blast to have on when we do some of these like fun theme shows like that.
Yeah, how about the day after the Gretzky high stick on Gilmore?
Yeah, that'd be a good one for you. But, for sure, you know. I mean, for me, I think to do a Miracle on Ice one would be a blast. You know, just like
one after game 8 after Paul Henderson.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many great situations. You know, the Flyers 35 game unbeaten streak.
Yeah, I do remember that, obviously, because we got all the games on CBC in Detroit, so I was heavily invested in the Summit Series. So
I would definitely go back and find like the other news of the day too. So we talk about some like ridiculous, insignificant things that are happening around it. Oh, now we got to get to the big story.
Right.
It'd be a lot of fun. All right, cool. Well, thank you guys. Thanks, Kevin. Remember,
all right, see you later.
Kevin @ Kevin Allen on Twitter and, of course, in the USA Today. I'm Eklund. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. Talk to you soon.